Ryan and I are here to preview Dodos Riding Dinos first race. This is a more accessible, if you can imagine that, game than its big brother, Dodos Riding Dinos.
Yep.
It's a smaller footprint. The components are a little bit different. And it's got basically no text that you need to read on the cards, which I think is probably one of the bigger differences here, in that they wanted, once you learn it, because you still do have to learn the game, but all the cards are iconography based, so that once you get used to that, I think younger people can play without having to read every single card.
Yeah, it is a smaller game, like David said, not just in the footprint, but also just in the components, in the cost. So this is kind of designed to be an entry point for people that have younger kids that are maybe on the fence about, okay, what even is this game? It seems kind of silly. And I've said this before, and it is a silly game that leans into that. Like, you have a variety of different objects that you're like tossing onto the board in different ways. There's a dexterity element. Now, in this game, it's all a bit simplified in the way that those items work. Again, kind of targeting that younger audience of playing with your kids, or kind of being the stepping stone. Grow them up with this, and then you can get into the Dodos Riding Dinos main game, and then kind of expand on the rules, because there's a lot more complexity in that game. Like David said, there's no text, so it's all broken down into icons. And those icons, there's just a variety of icons. It's not, you don't have a crazy breadth of effects that you need to try to figure out how they all interact like you might in the other game. Again, designed with that simplicity and focus.
Yeah, those cards in the original game had, like Ryan said, quite a bit of text at the bottom of them. They're very differently designed. These ones look like this. It's a nice picture. It's got the movement up in the upper left corner. And then at the bottom, a variety of different things that can include those items. It can include just other actions that you might take. We won't go through all of them, but we do want to show you, effectively, if you're not familiar with the base game, how this game is played. At the beginning of each round, each of us are going to take our hand and choose one of the cards. It has to be a blue or a red card. There are green cards in the deck, but those are used for a different thing that we'll show you in a second. Then you take those cards, you put them face down, and then everyone reveals their cards. Once you do that, the first player, let's say Ryan in this case, is going to execute his card. So the first thing you do is move that number of spaces.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, so he's in the fourth space, and then before he gets to execute his action, everyone at the table in turn order has the opportunity to play sort of a reaction card. Those are those green cards. So I could play a reactive card if I wanted to do something. This might help me. It might hurt the active player in some respect. Once everyone has done that, or not, then Ryan's going to execute the bottom of his card. In this case, he gets to use the banana.
Yeah, and this is kind of where the fun of the game comes in, is that most of these cards are going to have you interact with these pieces in some way. And the goal of these pieces is to mess with your opponents by hitting them with the piece. So we've got the race happening on the board, and then the dexterity element happening above the board. And of course, in a 2-player game, you know, it's a little bit more targeted.
It's a little more challenging.
When you play in a 6-player game, you've got these, what do they call them, Dodinos? Dodino pieces all over the board, and you're trying to hit them in a variety of different ways. Like, for example, the banana, you have to keep your elbow on the table and just kind of like,
use your wrist.
You know, use your wrist.
Let's see what you got.
Terrible.
No.
Completely missed. And then every card is going to have a benefit. If you can hit somebody, they suffer some kind of negative, you get some kind of benefit. And then in some cases, there's actually a penalty even if you don't hit. I didn't play one of those, but it's pretty easy to understand once you see it. There's a red box that is the detrimental effect, a white box that's the bonus effect, and a black box that's the penalty if you miss. So in this case, I missed quite terribly, honestly.
Yeah, you missed. The other things are kind of interesting. There's 4 items in the game. There's the little dino egg. If you use that, you're going to put it in one of these nests around the corner of the board and flick it and try to hit dinos, or Dodinos, I'm sorry. And it should be pointed out too, if the item hits multiple dinos, including your own, all those players suffer that penalty. The star is going to be something that you hold sort of 4 inches or so above the table in the palm of your hand and kind of toss out there. We are awful at this. And then the meteor is probably
the meteor. This is the most fun.
The most fun and easiest. You have to hold it forehead height.
Yeah, if you just drop it and hope. Can we hit the orange? Oh, right on it.
Direct hit. But when you do that, like Ryan said, you're going to execute the penalties for the players that got hit. You might get a benefit. And then if you miss, there might be a penalty for you. Some of the cards, though, don't even have that. We'll skip the one I did. But this one here, this is a blue one. It lets me move forward 6. And then if I have 2 cards in my hand, I could discard 2 cards in order to draw 2 more cards. There's other things that let you roll this die and move forward that many of spaces. Plus, all of the Dodinos in this game have a power that you can use once per game that's printed on your card. For instance, I have one here that lets me discard 2 of my cards as long as I have them, and I can roll this die twice and move that many spaces, which I think I would do right off the bat.
Yeah, it should
mainly
get ahead
because of your power.
Yeah, my power, this dinosaur can steal 4 cards from another player. So as soon as they have 4 cards in their hand, I'm stealing them. So like I said, I mean, that dexterity element feels fun at the table, especially for, I think, kids that are just getting to throw pieces around at each other. But there is still quite a bit of strategy in the race because, like David said, you have those green cards that can be played. There's a slight tweak, actually, to the rules. If you are familiar with the basic game, you get 1 opportunity to play a green card after somebody moves. In this game, for whatever reason, they've decided to give you that opportunity again after their action.
Yeah.
So you can play a green card after the move, but if you don't, you can play it after the action. I think that just gives you a little bit more flexibility.
It's a little bit more flexibility. It's 1 extra step, but really not that significant because also when you play that green card, like we said, that is the only green card you can play for that round. So if I play that on Ryan's turn, it can go all around the table. My green card stays out in front of me to signify I cannot play another green card. So someone later in the round might look and go, okay, everyone's played their green card. I can safely execute my action. Because a lot of the green cards, I mean, they do a number of different things, but a lot of them will also basically just cancel the active player's action on their card, making it a little harder for them to progress.
Yeah, so the game is supposed to be quick, fast-paced. It's a race to see who can get to the end. Of course, that's a lot harder than it sounds because once you start getting ahead, especially in a 6-player game, which when I play this game, well, I haven't played the first race, but when I play Dodos Riding Dinos, 6 players is such a sweet spot because it just gets absolutely chaotic. With you have no idea where you're going to end up by the time it finally gets back around to you. Everybody that thinks they're going to win isn't going to win. Yeah, and
I'm showing the double-sided board.
I don't know if we could flip it.
The first side doesn't have any unique spaces. It's a fairly straightforward race. This one, which I'm pretty sure gets its inspiration from a certain Nintendo game, Rainbow Road. Game. This one actually has some icons on it that are going to do some things as you hit them. In the rule book I've seen, there are little things that are going to activate when you land on certain spaces, which is also along the lines of what happens in the big game.
Yeah, so basically, really, it is a lot of what you'd love from the big game, just kind of boiled down so that you can play it with your kids without having to read them every single card. Because once you teach them what the icons do, I think it's pretty easy to actually understand what you're doing from turn to turn.
Yeah, for sure. This is, like we said at the beginning, a nice entry point into this franchise. This is the original game was very successful. I think they're running this campaign just to capitalize on that success, but also give people the opportunity to get a game to try out with their kids, with their families, and something that anyone can look at cards without having to be, oh, here, let me read that for you, son or daughter.
Right, exactly.
But that is Dodos Riding Dinos first race. If you have any questions about it, please make them in the comments below. We'll get down there and answer whatever we can. Until next time, though, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then.